Welcome back to CheckPoint. The controversial report of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission handed over to President Uhuru Kenyatta 2 years ago, and whose implementation is pending before Parliament has kicked off yet another political storm. Whereas the National Assembly received the report a while back, CORD leader Raila Odinga is now accusing President Kenyatta and Majority Leader Aden Duale of deliberately derailing its implementation. As KTN's Duncan Hyamba reports on this week's edition of Spotlight 2017, this may be the pointer of the next battleground between the government and opposition.
I am submitting to you the report of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission.
This was in May 2013 when the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission handed over its final report to President Uhuru Kenyatta, a report whose implementation process is yet to be set in motion by Parliament.
We expected that immediately Parliament would move to adopt the report and then set up the implementation mechanism, and that they would be the driving force demanding periodic reports from the Attorney General on the progress on implementation of the recommendation.
Mid this week, opposition chiefs kicked off a political storm, accusing the government of being a stumbling block to its implementation.
Hiyo report tulipokea na Kibaki tukiwa sisi tunaondoka kwa serikali. Sasa nyinyi mmekaa kwa serikali kule kwa bunge miaka 4. Bado unasema watu utaweka kwa bunge ijadiliwe. Ilijadiliwa lini na nyinyi mko katika kipindi cha lala salama? Ingekuwa imeshatekelezwa. Kwa hivyo ukweli mpaka julikane.
You cannot know honesty, because I was leader of government business. In all honesty say that the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Committee ati iko kwa bunge na mutafanya wakati fulani.
Tulikuwa tunangoja serikali iweke pesa ya kuimplement your report.
The Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission was set up to investigate historical injustices, including extrajudicial killings and economic marginalization and other human rights violations committed in the country since 1963, a process that saw over 40,000 individuals testify before the commission.
I think the greatest tragedy is that national reconciliation, peace building, cohesion never became a national agenda. And this, I think, is the greatest disappointment, that especially among the political elite, they never embraced, promoting nationhood as a passion.
During his second State of the Nation address in March 2015, President Uhuru Kenyatta apologized for the wrongs committed by past regimes.
My brothers and sisters, to move forward as one nation, I stand before you today on my own behalf, that of my government, and all past governments, to offer the sincere apology of the government of the Republic of Kenya to all our compatriots for all past wrongs.
That apology was supposed to have been delivered by October 2013, 6 months after receiving the report. Another setback being failure by Parliament to kickstart the implementation process.
So you're disappointed?
Extremely, because it seems that in the national psyche, the drive to address the painful past, chart out a progressive future, really was left to the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, and immediately they wound up as a country, we moved on to other things.
The report has also recommended need for reasonable compensation of all victims of historical injustices.
I have instructed the Treasury to establish a fund of 10 billion shillings over the next 3 years to be used for restorative justice. This will provide a measure of relief and will underscore my government's goodwill.
At the end of the day, what the TJRC process, the measure of its success, is the extent to which its recommendations would have an impact on the lives, especially of the victims, those who are in need of medical treatment, those who are in need of restoration into their land, their properties, children who have been unable to access education.
Mid this week, over 200 families calling themselves victims of Enosopukia 1992-93 ethnic clashes camped and even spent 2 nights outside Parliament, demanding what they called delayed and seemingly denied justice.
Ile kitu ilitulete hapa, tulilete maneno yetu katika bunge, tukaambiwa itashughulikiwa, na tangu wa leo hajashughulikiwa. Ndio unaona akina mama hapa, ndio unaona wasee hapa, hata wengine wako manyumbani, na tunasema tutakaa hapa mpaka tuone suluhisho ya kwamba tutasaidiwa nini na serikali yetu.
Controversy has trailed the TJRC report since its inception that saw the commission miss deadlines severally. Its chairman, Ambassador Bethel Kiplagat, battled with credibility issues. Immediately he was appointed. A controversy that forced his deputy, human rights advocate Betty Morongi, resigned from the commission. In the final report, the chairman himself is reported to have been mentioned adversely, with foreign commissioners in the team: Gertrude Chawatama, Ron Sly, and Bahanu Dinka, lodging complaints alleging that the office of the president had doctored the final report. Their dissenting opinion on the land chapter was controversially left out of the final report. In the last general election, the land question was a hotly contested subject. It dominated the country's first ever presidential debate, with the Jubilee candidate Uhuru Kenyatta finding himself on the receiving end from other candidates over land owned by the Kenyatta family.
Coast Province from Lamu to Lungalunga have been treated very unfairly by the 3 governments because even titles mostly are given to upcountry people.
I have said severally, I have never, save for the rumor mongering, been accused of any impropriety in terms of grabbing anybody's land. Land that we own as a family is land that has been purchased on the basis of willing buyer and willing seller, at no instance whatsoever. However, we do recognize that there is need to deal with this problem, not from an emotional point of view, but from a practical point of view.
One of the problems facing Kenya in the history and today is this whole idea of local elites taking over resources that belong to community. For example, when you bring the concept of willing buyer, willing seller, how exactly do you do that in absence of safeguards and in a country where economic disparities are huge?
No organization, from anti-corruption to the Ministry of Lands, has ever accused me of any kind of impropriety in land. Not at all, not anywhere.
Taita Taveta, his family and one Basil Criticals literally own most of the land. And recently, he is reported as having given the Tavetas 4,000 acres. Now, how would he deal with that issue? Because the Tavetas need to be rescued from being squatters in their own place. And these are the issues that we are raising when we talk of a person whose family owns maybe the largest tracts of lands. Half may be an exaggeration to drive the point home, but the largest landowner, how do you resolve that?
in the previous parliament of which Ms. Karua was a member, I think that question was raised, and the answer is clear. And the question was raised as to who are the largest landowners in this country. My name and the name of any member of my family never appeared on that list. So I think we need to clarify that first. The second aspect is it is indeed true we do own land in Taita Taveta. We own 30,000 acres as a family in Taita Taveta. He's mentioned it, that's correct. But in no way do we own, as they say, the province. The largest landowner in Taita Taveta County is actually the government of the Republic of Kenya and also the trust lands that are there.
If Kiambu, where he comes from, the residents are complaining, can he take charge of this country and work on land issues in the 47 counties?
I want to put it this way. It is not just in Kiambu that we have a problem with land. We have a problem in land in every single one of our 47 counties. And I believe that is why land was a critical component of our new constitution. That is why we have now the National Land Commission that has been given the mandate to look into issues of historical justice, to look into issues of grabbed land, to look into issues of land use.
In defense of my brother Uhuru Kenyatta, he was just an innocent inheritor. He did not commit the original sin. And I think the country should sympathize with him. But the issue is that there was a betrayal of the freedom fighters, the original freedom, the struggle. Those who sacrificed most were completely abandoned by the leadership. And that's the reason why this issue has remained a contentious issue for all this time.
The Jubilee regime has tried tackling the land problem, especially at the coast, with President Uhuru Kenyatta giving out land titles to squatters in Mombasa and Lamu counties. Latest efforts being January this year, whereby squatters encroaching on the controversial expansive Waitik land in Likoni were given titles. The TJRC report touched on many subjects, but land remains the most emotive of them all. And just like in the last general election, the land question will no doubt be a big political fight, and the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission's report could be the flashpoint. Duncan Hemba, KTN News.